Hi everyone, Nick Johnson, eatmyshrubs.com. I had to fix a worm bin. One of my worm bins sprung a leak over the Christmas holidays, so I had to fix it. In order to fix it, I pretty much have to take the whole thing apart, so I decided to make a video and show you guys how I make one. I had to do it, like I said, it was over Christmas time. I had to do it in my basement, so the sound quality wasn't the greatest. It's the voiceover here. Um, as you can see, I use a migratory migration harvesting system. The screen in the middle is more for me. The worms don't. I don't know if the worms even know it's there, um, but it makes harvesting a lot easier. You just feed one side, um, the worms go towards the food, so it makes harvesting the other side with the finished vermicompost a lot easier. A lot less worms get harmed in the process. Um, So the first thing I need to do is figure out where the leak is. I'm more just showing for my own reference where the leak is. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to replace the whole liner, so there won't be any leaks. This particular bed is my experimental bed. I've done a bunch of different uh, configurations over the years. So first thing to do is take out all the vents, take it apart. So I'll work at that here. We're back. I took the fittings all out, the vents. Here's one. Actually, I had two different types on this bed just because, well, like I said, I experiment on this one. Um, this one seems to work the best. Um, it's just pretty much what it does. It's a bulkhead fitting. There's no screen on these ones, so you have to add a screen, which is kind of a pain. Um, but yeah, so here we got the liner taken out, the old liner. Um, Actually, when I took the liner out, I found a pile of worms. There must have been 30 worms in between. There's two layers of liner there, so um, tells me there's a pretty big hole. Anyway, but this one I let here's one there. I let this bin dry out for a couple of weeks before I went at it here over the holidays. So um, here's some more coming up. So these worms are they found a home and a little bit of food, I guess, to keep them going. So we put them back in the other bin for now. Save some, make me feel good. Um, as you can see here, I'm going to tip it over, and you can see the mess that left behind. So I'm going to scrape all this stuff out and clean it up the best I can, and then we'll put a new liner in it. One improvement I am going to make on this bin while I give it apart is I'm going to put some um, geo fabric, a little cloth in between. This stuff's pretty handy actually. I get this stuff from some jobs I do, little scrap pieces that we cut off and are destined for the landfill. I bring it home, and it doesn't take much to cushion plastic against wood. It's easy to rip the plastic, so this stuff comes in handy. So I'm going to add this to the bit to this bin, and then put the liner in it. So hopefully it'll keep anything from ripping. Um, no exact science here. I see a little spot there I need to fix before I put the liner in, but we'll get to that. Um, I'll show you up what it looks like inside here. Nice and a little bit cleaner. Um, I just put it in. I staple it. This stuff I staple at the top. I try not to put too many sharp objects in the plastic, or underneath the plastic. Over time, just things rubbing will make a hole come through. So this hopefully will cure that problem, and we won't have any more leaks. Um, this is the first one I've had on this box. I've had the box for 5 or 6 years now, um, and it's the first leak I've had. So I added the screen to it after the fact, so that may have been my issue too. So anyway, with improvements, every time we do this, we do a little bit better. So the poly that I use here, that's the next step, is it's just a 6 mil poly, contractor grade. It's available at every hardware store. Sometimes I get some from different projects, leftover scraps and stuff, a little thicker, would be nice, but this it rolls out in 2 layers, so I just use 2 layers and use that little added protection. So um, here we go. It's installed. One big thing to remember when I do this is not to staple anything down where the moisture is going to be. I do staple it at the top just to keep it um, in place over time, and then trim it off just on the outside of the box. So um, the next step will be to put the screen in it. I guess here I'll flip it over. There you go. You can see inside. So nothing's been stapled. There's no. It's kind of loose in there, so it has some room to move around. Um, and now we'll install the new screen I've made. Hopefully, it'll be a little easier on the plastic. Um, it'll fit right in, and we'll just attach it again just at the top, so it's no nowhere for the moisture to get into, or at least water anyway. Um, yeah, there's all kinds of different ways, different methods to harvest the worms. I've chosen this migration harvesting method just because it works. It's a lot less mess. The first time I harvested worms, I just dumped them out on the linoleum floor. I forget now what you call that. The dump and chase method is what I called it, because it made a huge mess. It worked, but we don't have the linoleum anymore. So this method works a lot better for me. My kids are all about it, so it's easy to see the worms move too. It's kind of cool. So here's the product now. I've got the vents in, and um, the other thing that I did differently here is rather than trying to spread the mesh through the threads of the vents, you see I just put a layer of mesh on top of the plastic. So it's the fabric on top of the wood, and then the plastic on top of the fabric, 2 layers of plastic, and then the screen. It's just the same screen that is used in my screen door at the back door. Um, Pretty easy, pretty cheap stuff, easy to work with too. So trying this method. Hopefully the worms don't mind rolling around on the screen. It's a really fine, smooth mesh. Here's a close-up of it. You can see the vent underneath the mesh. So there's no way for the worms to get out through unless they chew through the the mesh, which I don't think they're going to do. So there's the other style. You see the other style of vent there. Finished product here with the lid, ready for some worms. We're gonna put some worms in it right away from the other bin, which I'll show you the other bin as well. Um, yeah, so hopefully it works. It's nice and sturdy. Here's the other bin I've made. This is the next model. This was all out of old cedar. It was an old walkway that I was given to throw out. So a little bit of sand, a little bit of time, sandpaper that is, and a little bit of time, and worked out pretty good. This one was meant to be a bench. You should be able to put it somewhere in your family room or something and sit on it. It's definitely sturdy enough. With using the plastic liner, some people you don't have to use the plastic liner, but then your wood selection is paramount. You don't want to put pressure treated wood or some wood the worms don't like. So with the plastic liner, you don't have to worry about all that stuff. Here you see the worms inside the new, what I call the new bin. Same style, same migratory or migration style. These guys are happy. This bin's been really good so far. Get lots of, there's the newer stuff. So we get lots of compost from these 2 bins. That's for sure. Just my little family of 4. Um, okay, so we're ready to add some worms and some new bedding to the new bin. Here's my composter from the kitchen. Just fill it up, and then normally we put it in this 5-gallon pail that stays in the freezer, and then we freeze all of our compost before we give it to the worms. So we're gonna add some stuff to it. I got some paper shredded up as bedding in there. I'll show this all to you when I'm all done. So I made a little nest in there. I got my gloves on just to keep things clean. The worm compost is sticky stuff sometimes when it's really wet, and the compost isn't the greatest stuff anyway. So we're gonna get some food spread out for them, and then we'll go get some worms from the in that second bin that I showed you, and we'll put some worms in. Oh, first we got some more compost, I guess. So this is the extra stuff. Pretty much give them everything that we can. I obviously don't want to give them any citrus or anything too acidic. The worms don't like that at all. And I stopped putting in eggshells so much because it took forever for them to break it down, and that's a lot of calcium in the compost. So a good mix of stuff. It's a good thing about the 5-gallon pail is that you can kind of select. Some weeks we go through a lot of bananas, and some weeks we go through a lot of avocado. So you can sort of pick and choose what you give them. Okay, so now we'll go get some worms. The camera can't follow me over there, but I'll bring some. I'll just get a couple of handfuls of the compost and the whole works, and sort of like putting a goldfish into a new bowl. You give them some of their old stuff to make them feel at home, and then they'll find, hey, there's new food and new surroundings. So hopefully they'll like this. I'll check back in a couple of weeks. Just let them get accustomed to their new surroundings, see if they recognize the place, and just get another handful of worms here, and make sure we get a good population to start out with, and we'll add some more bedding to the top of it, and make sure we don't have any stragglers on the gloves. Make sure everyone's in either one bin or the other. You get the odd straggler after the fact. The 3 minutes. 3 minutes, I think, is the max they can be out in the sunlight without any moisture around before they die. So definitely don't want that to happen, and we'll give them a little bit more bedding on top. Make sure everything's covered, everybody's happy. Have spray. I have a spray bottle of water that I'll wet all this stuff down. And without collecting the moisture, without collecting all the water from, or the pee, I guess, from the worms, definitely have to control the moisture. So I always have some dry paper, just newspaper, hanging around. If I notice that the worms are too wet or anything, they're unhappy or they're starting to smell a little bit, then I add some dry stuff to it. So, but again, too dry is bad also. So you'll wet down the paper, and the compost that I added, the bedding that I added, and the worms themselves are wet anyway, so I don't need a whole lot. But the paper, the worms aren't going to like the dry paper. So we'll let it down. We'll put the lid back on it, tuck her in the dark, and come back in a couple weeks. See if we have some compost and some happy worms, and I'll show you guys how that all turns out.